Hello everyone and welcome. Today we are going to explore something that can completely change the way your brain works, not just how you learn English, but how you remember everything in your life. Because many people today feel frustrated, they study for hours but forget quickly, they read books but cannot recall what they read, they meet people and forget their names just minutes later, and they start believing something is wrong with them. They say maybe I am not smart enough, maybe my memory is weak, maybe I just cannot remember things like others do. But let me tell you something very important, your memory is not broken, it is simply untrained, and this is a powerful realization, because it means you can change it, you can improve it, and you can take control of it. And today we are going to do exactly that, step by step, using a simple story to help you understand everything naturally, without stress, without confusion, just by listening and following the flow. And as you listen, I want you to relax your mind, do not try to memorize every word, just understand the meaning. Because real learning happens when your brain is calm and focused, not when it is under pressure. And now let me introduce you to someone, a young man named Alex. Alex was a student, just like many people. He wanted to improve his life, he wanted to succeed, he wanted to learn faster. But there was one big problem, he kept forgetting everything. He would study for hours, read pages and pages, but the next day, it felt like everything disappeared. He would walk into a room and forget why he was there, he would meet someone and forget their name in seconds, and slowly, he started losing confidence in himself. He began to believe that maybe he just did not have a good memory, maybe he was not capable of learning at a high level. And this is where many people make the biggest mistake, they confuse a lack of method with a lack of ability. But one day, something changed for Alex. He discovered a simple idea that completely transformed his understanding. He learned that memory is not a gift, it is a system, and if you understand the system, you can control the result. And this is where everything begins, because before you can improve your memory, you must understand how it works. And this is exactly what we are going to do together, step by step, and at the same time, you will improve your English, because you are listening, you are understanding, and you are building real language skills naturally. And now let me explain something important. Your brain is like a library, every piece of information you learn is like a book, but if you do not organize it, if you do not label it, if you do not revisit it, it gets lost, not because your brain is weak, but because your system is weak. And this is what happened to Alex. He was putting information into his brain, but he was not saving it properly. Everything stayed in short-term memory and disappeared quickly. And this is something that happens to most people. They hear things once, they read things once, and they expect to remember forever. But that is not how memory works. Memory requires attention, repetition, and connection. And this is the beginning of Alex's transformation. Because once he understood this, he stopped blaming himself, and he started learning differently. And as we continue this story, you will see how simple changes in the way you learn can completely transform your memory, your focus, and your confidence. And at the same time, you will improve your English step by step, naturally, without stress. And this is the power of learning through stories, simple, effective, and powerful. Something important started to change in Alex's life the moment he stopped blaming his memory and began observing how his mind actually behaved during the day, because he realized that forgetting was not happening randomly, it was happening for a reason, and that reason was something very simple but very powerful, his lack of attention. And this is where most people misunderstand the problem. They think memory is about storage, but in reality, it begins with focus, because you cannot retain what you never truly noticed in the first place. And Alex started seeing this clearly in his daily routine. He would sit in class, look at the teacher, hear the words, but his thoughts were somewhere else, sometimes thinking about his phone, sometimes remembering a conversation, sometimes worrying about something unrelated. And even though he was physically present, mentally he was absent. And because of that, the information never entered his mind deeply enough to stay. And this is a very important idea for you to understand: memory does not begin when you try to recall something, it begins at the moment you first encounter it. If that moment is weak, the memory will also be weak, and Alex decided to test this in a simple way. One day, instead of just listening passively, he made a conscious effort to slow down and pay full attention. When someone spoke, he listened carefully. When he read a sentence, he focused on every word. When he heard a name, he repeated it quietly in his mind, and something surprising happened. He started remembering more. Not because he changed his intelligence, but because he changed his level of awareness. And this shows something very important: your brain is always receiving information, but it only keeps what you signal as important, and attention is that signal. Imagine your mind as a camera. If the image is blurry, the result will also be unclear, but if you focus the lens, the picture becomes sharp and easy to recognize later. And this is exactly how attention works: it sharpens the moment so your brain can capture it properly. And Alex understood something else that changed everything for him. Distractions were not just small problems, they were the main reason he could not retain anything. Notifications, noise, multitasking, all these things were dividing his focus. And when focus is divided, memory becomes weak, and this is why he started doing something simple but powerful. He gave himself small moments of complete presence, even just a few seconds. When he learned something important, he paused, looked, listened, and repeated it, and those few seconds created a stronger connection in his brain. And this is something you can do as well. You do not need hours of study. You need moments of real focus. Even 5 seconds of full attention can be more powerful than 5 minutes of distraction. And as Alex continued practicing this, he noticed another change. Learning became easier, because instead of forcing his brain to remember later, he was making the first moment stronger. And when the first moment is strong, recall becomes natural. And as you listen to this, you are also training your attention. Every sentence you follow, every idea you understand is helping your brain become more focused, more aware, and more capable of remembering. And this is the foundation of everything that comes next, because without attention, nothing enters, but with attention, everything becomes possible. So stay present, stay focused, and continue, because the next step will take this even further. As Alex continued exploring new ways to improve his thinking, he discovered another powerful insight that completely changed how he learned, because he realized that his mind did not respond strongly to plain words. It responded to images, to shapes, to movement, to scenes that felt alive. And this understanding opened a new door for him, because instead of trying to memorize abstract information, he started transforming everything into mental pictures. And this made a huge difference, because visual impressions are easier for the brain to recognize, store, and retrieve later. And this is something you experience every day, even without noticing it. When someone says the word apple, you do not see letters, you imagine a red fruit, maybe shiny, maybe sweet, maybe something you have tasted before, and that image is what helps you remember, not the spelling of the word. And once Alex understood this, he stopped treating learning like a list of symbols and started turning it into a creative process. Whenever he heard a new name, he connected it to something visual. If he met someone named Rose, he imagined a flower. If he heard the word mountain, he pictured a huge peak covered in snow, and these associations created strong connections inside his mind, because the brain loves what is vivid, unusual, and emotional. And this is why boring information is often forgotten. It does not create a strong impression, it does not stand out, it does not activate curiosity. And Alex decided to experiment with this technique in a simple situation. One day he needed to remember a short list of items. Instead of repeating them like a machine, he created a strange scene in his imagination, something funny, something exaggerated, something impossible, and suddenly the list became easy to recall, because it was no longer separate elements, it was one connected visual experience. And this shows something very important. memory improves when information becomes meaningful, and meaning is created through imagination, and this is something you can apply immediately. Whenever you learn a new word, do not just read it, see it, feel it, give it color, give it movement, create something unique in your mind. And the more unusual it is, the stronger it stays. And Alex noticed that this method was not only effective, it was also enjoyable. Learning became less stressful and more engaging, because instead of forcing his brain, he was working with it. And this is a key idea: your brain is not your enemy, it is your partner, but you must learn how to communicate with it in the right way. And images are one of the most powerful languages your mind understands. And as you continue listening, you are also experiencing this process. Each idea creates a mental picture, each explanation builds a scene, and these scenes help you understand more deeply, remember more easily, and learn more naturally. And this is how real progress happens, not through pressure, but through connection, not through repetition alone, but through creativity. And as we move forward, you will see how combining these techniques will make your memory stronger than ever, step by step, moment by moment, building a system that truly works. As Alex became more comfortable using images to strengthen his thinking, he noticed something interesting. Individual pictures were helpful, but when those pictures were connected, something even more powerful happened. His mind began to hold entire sequences with ease. And this is where he discovered a new approach that completely changed his results. Instead of trying to keep separate pieces of information, he started linking them together through a simple narrative, and this made everything easier, smoother, and more natural, because the human brain is designed to follow sequences, not isolated fragments. And this is why you can remember a movie you watched years ago, but struggle to recall a short list you read yesterday. Because a movie has flow, it has movement, it has connection, while a list feels empty and disconnected. And Alex decided to test this idea in a practical way. He took a group of random items and instead of repeating them again and again, he created a strange, funny chain of events, something that made no logical sense but felt vivid in his imagination. And suddenly, the items became easy to recall, not because he forced himself, but because his mind followed the sequence naturally. And this reveals an important truth: memory improves when information is connected, when each idea leads to another, when everything forms a continuous path. And this is exactly what storytelling does. It transforms static information into a living experience. And Alex began using this method in different areas of his life. When he studied, he turned concepts into small scenarios. When he prepared something important, he organized his thoughts like a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end, and this made everything clearer, more structured, and easier to retrieve later. And this is something you can apply as well. Whenever you need to remember multiple elements, do not treat them as separate units, connect them, create relationships, build a sequence that your mind can follow, and do not worry about making it realistic. In fact, the more unusual it is, the better, because uniqueness captures attention and strengthens retention. And as Alex continued practicing this approach, he noticed another benefit: his thinking became more organized, because storytelling does not only improve memory, it also improves clarity. It helps you structure ideas in a logical way, making it easier to express them when needed. And this is especially useful when learning a language, because communication is not about isolated words, it is about connected ideas, flowing naturally from one to another. And as you listen right now, you are experiencing this process. Each sentence leads to the next, each idea builds on the previous one, creating a continuous flow that your mind can follow easily. And this is why this method works so well. It aligns with how your brain naturally processes information. And as we continue, you will discover even more ways to strengthen this system, combining structure, imagination, and consistency to create something powerful, something that allows you to remember not just more, but better, with clarity, confidence, and control. As Alex became more comfortable using images to strengthen his thinking, he noticed something interesting. Individual pictures were helpful, but when those pictures were connected, something even more powerful happened. His mind began to hold entire sequences with ease, and this is where he discovered a new approach that completely changed his results. Instead of trying to keep separate pieces of information, he started linking them together through a simple narrative, and this made everything easier, smoother, and more natural, because the human brain is designed to follow sequences, not isolated fragments, and this is why you can remember a movie you watched years ago, but struggle to recall a short list you read yesterday, because a movie has flow, it has movement, it has connection, while a list feels empty and disconnected. And Alex decided to test this idea in a practical way. He took a group of random items and instead of repeating them again and again, he created a strange, funny chain of events, something that made no logical sense but felt vivid in his imagination. And suddenly, the items became easy to recall, not because he forced himself, but because his mind followed the sequence naturally, and this reveals an important truth. Memory improves when information is connected, when each idea leads to another, when everything forms a continuous path, and this is exactly what storytelling does. It transforms static information into a living experience, and Alex began using this method in different areas of his life. When he studied, he turned concepts into small scenarios. When he prepared something important, he organized his thoughts like a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end, and this made everything clearer, more structured, and easier to retrieve later. And this is something you can apply as well. Whenever you need to remember multiple elements, do not treat them as separate units, connect them, create relationships, build a sequence that your mind can follow, and do not worry about making it realistic. In fact, the more unusual it is, the better, because uniqueness captures attention and strengthens retention. And as Alex continued practicing this approach, he noticed another benefit. His thinking became more organized, because storytelling does not only improve memory, it also improves clarity. It helps you structure ideas in a logical way, making it easier to express them when needed, and this is especially useful when learning a language, because communication is not about isolated words, it is about connected ideas, flowing naturally from one to another, and as you listen right now, you are experiencing this process. Each sentence leads to the next, each idea builds on the previous one, creating a continuous flow that your mind can follow easily, and this is why this method works so well. It aligns with how your brain naturally processes information, and as we continue, you will discover even more ways to strengthen this system, combining structure, imagination, and consistency to create something powerful, something that allows you to remember not just more, but better, with clarity, confidence, and control. As Alex kept refining his approach, something even deeper began to reveal itself, something he had never fully understood before, because he realized that not all memories are created equally. Some disappear quickly, while others stay for years, sometimes for a lifetime, and this difference is not random, it is connected to something very powerful, something that influences how your brain decides what to keep and what to ignore. And that element is emotion, because the stronger the feeling attached to a moment, the stronger the memory becomes. And this explains something you already know from your own life. There are days you cannot remember at all, but there are moments you will never forget, moments filled with joy, fear, excitement, or even sadness, and those moments stay clear in your mind, not because you tried to memorize them, but because you felt them deeply. And Alex began to understand that learning without feeling is weak, while learning with emotion becomes powerful and lasting, and this changed the way he approached everything. Instead of treating information as something neutral, he started connecting it to real experiences, real reactions, real meaning, and this created a deeper level of engagement, because when your brain senses importance, it holds on to it more strongly. And Alex experimented with this idea in simple situations. When he learned a new word, he did not just read its definition, he connected it to a personal experience. something that made the word meaningful to him, something that gave it life, and suddenly, that word was no longer just information. It became part of his reality, and this is a very important principle. Memory improves when learning becomes personal, when it connects to something you care about, something you understand emotionally, and even when the topic seemed boring, Alex found creative ways to add meaning. He imagined situations, created scenarios, or linked ideas to something memorable, and this made even simple concepts easier to retain, because the brain responds to intensity, to uniqueness, to anything that stands out from the ordinary, and as he continued applying this approach, he noticed that his ability to recall improved significantly, not because he studied more, but because he felt more, and this is something you can apply immediately. Whenever you learn something new, ask yourself, what does this remind me of? How can I connect this to my life? How can I make this meaningful? And even a small emotional link can make a big difference, and as you listen right now, certain ideas may feel stronger than others, certain examples may stay in your mind more clearly, and that is because they create a stronger internal response, and this is exactly how memory becomes deeper, not through repetition alone, but through connection and feeling combined. And as we move forward, you will see how using this principle together with expression and explanation will take your understanding to an even higher level, transforming learning into something active, powerful, and unforgettable. As Alex reached this stage of his journey, something remarkable became clear. Not only was he remembering more, but he was also understanding faster, thinking more clearly, and expressing himself with greater confidence, and this transformation did not come from talent, it came from the way he used what he learned, because he discovered one final principle that brought everything together: the power of explaining information to others, and this step changed everything, because when you explain something, you are no longer just receiving knowledge, you are shaping it, organizing it, and making it your own, and this process forces your mind to go deeper, to simplify ideas, to connect concepts, and to express them in a way that makes sense, and this is where true mastery begins, because if you can explain something clearly, it means you truly understand it, and Alex started applying this in simple ways. After learning something new, he would say it out loud, sometimes speaking to himself, sometimes imagining he was teaching someone else, and this helped him reinforce everything he had learned, because explaining activates different parts of the brain, making the memory stronger and more accessible, and this is a very powerful idea. Learning becomes complete when you can use it, not just recognize it, and as he continued this habit, Alex noticed that his confidence increased naturally. He no longer hesitated when recalling information, he felt more in control of his thoughts, and his ability to communicate improved significantly. And this is especially important when learning a language, because understanding is only the first step. Expression is what makes it real, and this is something you can practice every day. Take a simple idea, a word, or a concept, and try to explain it in your own words, even if it feels imperfect, even if you make mistakes, because mistakes are part of growth, and every attempt strengthens your ability, and as you continue doing this, your brain becomes more organized, your thoughts become clearer, and your memory becomes more reliable. And now, as we reach the end of this journey, take a moment to reflect on everything you have learned. You now understand how focus shapes memory, how images strengthen recall, how connection builds structure, how repetition reinforces learning, how emotion deepens understanding, and how expression completes the process. And when all these elements come together, something powerful happens. Your mind becomes a system, not a random space, a system that you can control, improve, and trust, and this is the real goal, not just to remember more, but to remember what truly matters, and to use that knowledge with clarity and confidence. And as you move forward, remember that improvement does not come from knowing these ideas, it comes from applying them, step by step, day by day, building habits that support your growth. And as you continue listening, learning, and practicing, your English will improve naturally, your memory will become stronger, and your confidence will grow. And if this video helped you, if you learned something valuable today, make sure to support the channel, subscribe for more powerful content, share this video with someone who wants to improve their mind and their English, and stay connected for more stories, more lessons, and more growth, because this is just the beginning, and your journey is only getting stronger from here.